So recently the Pokemon Legends Arceus trailer dropped just days before its release, explaining some of the details in the game. And I thought it would be fun to analyze and dive into what little details they didn't explain and tried to figure out as much as possible before the game's release. This is all conjecture and analysis, so it's not 100% accurate, but I thought I found a couple things that you might not have noticed when watching the trailer. But before we get started, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new to help support me, and also make sure to leave a comment, let me know what you guys think. Okay? Let's do this. The start of the trailer shows some different biomes and landscapes of which you'll play in. We know that the Hisui region is what will later become the Sinnoh region, so this first frame with the winding rivers could be below where Solaceon Town and Half-Formed City would be in the Sinnoh map. We also notice in the next frame at night a Bidoof and a Bibarel being overlooked by a mountain which could be deduced as Mount Corone, which, considering this is close to Half-Formed City and looks to be the same biome, it's safe to assume that this is roughly where we are on the map. We also see a wild Pokemon in the distance which is too faint to tell which it is, though it could be a Wurmple or another Bidoof. And no, I haven't looked at the leaked Pokedex, so I'm going in this blind. Here we see the snow biome, which will eventually become Snowpoint City. This has a Perugly and another Bidoof, so there's not much to see here. In the next scene we see a couple of Magikarps in a lake next to a waterfall. This could be the waterfall in Route 223 leading up to Victory Road, and we also see a very distinctive blue tree on the side. Perhaps this could be a honey tree, as we so often see in Pokemon Diamond. In this frame we see Turtwig in an autumn setting where we see Mount Corona yet again. And if you look really closely, you can see another Turtwig hiding behind the tree. The next frame we see the main character employing stealth in tall grass to approach a Shinx, which is likely to be the most common way of catching Pokemon. And then we see a Gligar readying probably an Aerial Ace or some other type of flying move. Next we see an Ursaring and Electivire with red eyes, symbolizing their more dangerous Pokemon that will attack on sight as opposed to you provoking them. We see the professor for this region, Professor Laventon, and a UI speech bubble that resembles Pokemon Sword and Shield, which is very welcome because personally this is the best Pokemon UI to date for me. Now on this frame there's quite a bit to note. We see the X button above the Pikachu's head, which likely switches them out into the field, or it changes the attack style of that Pokemon. The L and R buttons look to switch between which Pokemon to bring out, and the green bar at the bottom likely indicates their current HP. We also see the plus button grayed out in the corner, which we know is used for transportation. It is likely grayed out to indicate that you cannot call a Pokemon when in motion or performing an action. On the left side we see the minus button and an icon resembling the Arc Phone device, which is unclear what it does, but I imagine it is to bring up the map or the start menu and a form of communication with other members of the survey corps. The up button probably brings up the pouch for your items, and the down button probably holds the log/Pokedex where you record the Pokemon that you've seen. We also see an eye at the top of the screen to symbolize that you've been seen and no longer in stealth mode, which is a common UI element in most open world games. We also notice two bracket-like icons surround the Pokemon, which is likely a form of Z targeting system which is common in Zelda, and the Pokeball reticle turns red only on the top parts, which could indicate that you are throwing it in battle or while the Pokemon has noticed your presence. In this cave we can see a Crobat, and in the corner what looks like a chest or something to pick up. This seems unlikely considering Pokeballs are usually used when picking up items in the wild. It could also be a rendered rock, which in Diamond and Pearl also contain items. In this scene in the back we see some ruins in the corner, which could be the Solaceon ruins near the soon to be Solaceon Town. At 53 seconds we see a glimpse of Jubilife Village, and we see 3 stores: the crafting store, the clothing store, and a general item shop. And we see a bunch of rivers and water very prominent in the village, which could be the rivers that surround Jubilife City in Diamond and Pearl. On this screen we see the contents of the UI, which is used to cycle between assets, has changed to items, such as the Oranberry and the Pokeball, as opposed to Pokemon, making me think that the X button is used to switch between different quick menu options, which is important in open world games. This also confirms my theory of the down button being for the Pokedex. On this screen we can see a Pokeball with no circle, which is how many you've seen, and a full Pokeball, which is how many you've caught. The coloured Pokeball seems to represent all Pokemon that have a research level of 10. On the right we see some Pokemon grayed out, which likely means we haven't caught them yet, as it says in the text, catch one and report back to the professor. What's also interesting is the Syndical says insufficient data, so there could be more about the Pokemon we need to research in order to complete the entry. After leaving the base camp we see a vignette around the screen which probably indicates you've entered stealth mode. We see the reticle isn't red here when throwing the Pokeball, which could mean the Bidoof hasn't seen you or isn't hostile. After catching it we see it autosaves and updates the journal automatically, while also seeing the Syndical level up. In this scene we see the red reticle again. It is possible this indicates your chance of catching the Pokemon at that time, with a full white reticle meaning you have a higher chance. In this UI we see a familiar fight screen. The plus button in the top right looks to either zoom in or analyze what we know of the Pokemon. The Y button has an unfamiliar icon and it's unclear what this actually does. The L and R buttons look to switch between agile and strong versions of the move, which we've seen in previous trailers. Here we see citrus berries in the tree, which you can hopefully pick off like in Sword and Shield. We noticed that we can start our Pokemon, so maybe we could have a UI element to indicate the amount of noise we make like in Breath of the Wild. When facing a Garchomp, we see this rock spraying out from the mountain, which is probably for harvesting rarer materials. We also see this black paint edged around the screen when we take damage, to act as a visual indicator of HP, as we see no HP bar in the HUD. On this frame we see what looks to be a waypoint as the number decreases as you roll away, which is a standard open world mechanic. In this frame we can see Pikachu, Rosalia, Starly and Abra in drawings on the map. I like how in base camp we can rest up to more granular times of the day, as this is very important when it comes to catching Pokemon that only spawn in certain locations and within certain hours. It would be a nice touch to have a tent you can take with you or a fireplace like in Breath of the Wild to heal up and sleep no matter how far you go. We see we have to do research tasks for each Pokemon, which will make completing the game that much harder, but it seems there are different levels to each task which will net you more research points. In the general store UI we see the number of items we currently have in our pouch, 6, and the number which we have in storage, meaning we could only carry a specific number of items, which introduces resource management, which isn't common in Pokemon. We see in the Pastures UI that Hippopotas only has one move, but it's at level 22. This is likely the developers tried to keep future moves a secret. Also, Thundershock, to my recollection, was not previously a move that Hippopotas could learn. There's a clothes store which, unless it gives perks in certain biomes, is purely cosmetic. In this frame we see just how big the Galaxy Team base of operations really is. I'd expect all of the building to be accessible at once, but it depends on how the game renders. We see some ruins in this shot which could be Spear Pillar considering the similar structures. They show us for different forms of transportation, which is key to really getting to explore the Hisui region properly. For example here, it looks like Weirdeer is able to scale mountains to some extent, and we also see another collectible or crafting material. I thought it was pretty cool that the commander has an Abra on standby in this shot. They introduced the idea of bombs, which seem to be infinite, so you wouldn't go into an encounter and be stuck unable to fight. And then in this shot, we see some Krogonks in a swamp biome, which seems reminiscent of the swampy area outside Pastoria Sea to the south of the map. Here we see what looks to be a broken down ship, likely to hold treasure and rare items. And finally, behind Silene we have a map that looks similar to this part of the map in the Sinnoh region, which further confirms that this is the location where we'll be starting the game. And that's it for what you may have missed and my short analysis of the trailer. Make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments, and make sure to like the video and subscribe to help support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.